Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Kens.
And I'm that nerd, Allison.
And welcome to our Spicy Book Nook. So, happy Zodiac Sunday.
Mm-hmm. It's a lazy Sunday.
It is a lazy Sunday. We're sitting on the floor because we don't want to be.
We don't know.
We don't want to be in chairs. So today is part 1 of As Told by the Boys.
Mm-hmm.
I hate them.
We left off with you hating them. What was your ranking after book 1?
I think either Seth or Max was on the bottom. They were the bottom 2.
Mm-hmm. I thought you said Max because he took the emotions from the girls for their biggest fears.
Maybe.
I thought it was like
he
Max,
also was
Seth,
like the driving
Darius,
factor of her
jumping into the water.
So it was Seth or Max. I can't remember because I really hate Seth too.
And then Darius and then Caleb.
Darius, Caleb, and then Orion. My man.
Orion's just a little.
Out of any of them, I would pick him.
Orion? I would 100% pick Orion. I can't talk.
You said that very quickly.
100%. Even from like Ruthless Boys. Lance Orion.
That man.
Yeah. What a man.
So we left off with I hate them. I still kind of hate them, not gonna lie. Some of them have been redeemed a little bit. Bitty bit.
I will say, they give you their background like spaced out throughout the book. So you'll learn their other perspectives further in. So as of right now, some of them aren't still like redeemable, but like the further on you go, then you'll get like their backstory and you'll be like, okay. Maybe.
It's hard for me because like, yes, they have a backstory. Cool. Awesome. Not once did they give the girls a chance.
It's also Faye.
Oh.
That's their whole universe. And when you see
maybe that's why I'm having a hard time with it because it's just
when you see you have to remember Ruthless Boys, and because like how the guys were in Ruthless Boys.
I know.
And like
I think that's where I'm having a rough time.
Savagery and like just trying to kill people. Like I think it's just their universe. And then when you see their backstory of like why they have so much pressure to be the way they are.
I think it's also hard for me because in Ruthless Boys, Elise was from the world.
Yeah. So
they were being mean to her, but she knew why.
And she was being mean right back.
Exactly. The girls don't have that.
They have nothing.
They have their words. And tell you what, Tori is doing so good with her words. Like, you give it to them. Yeah. The way that she is, like, putting Darius in his place makes my heart so happy.
Nobody talks to him like that. And she's just like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Kill me? You're already trying to do that.
You already tried to do that. So, like.
So.
I think you're really going to enjoy book 2 after this one. Because that's where they start to kind of.
Come into their power.
Because right now, at the end of book 1, before we see the boys' perspective, they are like, oh gosh, maybe this isn't for us. We're not going to survive this, maybe. Type situation. Book 2 is when they're like, no, we're fucking Faye. We're gonna give it right back to them, and we deserve to be here. And you're like, yeah, get them, and they get their revenge on the boys.
Good. So something
every single
that
one of them
I didn't talk about in the first video that I really should have is this is like a week time frame, a week and a half.
Yeah, the first book is like maybe 2 weeks. It's like a weekend, weekend, another week, dance,
like
type thing. The other books
it blows my
out.
mind when they're sitting here talking about like they got here yesterday, and I'm just like, so like, much has happened in a span of like 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like so much information, especially for the girls. I can't even imagine like all of that, and then to just information bomb straight in your face. Your parents are dead. It wasn't both sets of your parents are dead. Like.
You're Faye, you have these magical powers, but everybody hates you, and they're trying to kill you, and they're trying to make sure that you just want to go home, but you can't go home because you had no money.
You have no money. You have no home.
You had no job, no nothing. Like, you were just barely surviving, and all you want to do is live comfortably and have a roof over your head, and these people are being assholes.
For no reason. You don't even want to take it.
The amount of times...
You just want the money.
The amount of times that they tell them straight to their face, we don't want your throne. We just want the money.
Liars.
We don't want your throne.
I actually highlighted this in here because Darius is like, liar. Okay.
Just wait till book 2 where that all turns around and you're like, look what you did.
Look what you made me do.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you hate them.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So I hate them. Anyway, so we start off in a prologue of Darius and Orion. They are out fighting a nymph. This is when you learn a lot about like nymphs and what Darius and Orion are doing on the back end, which totally negates the thing that where you're feeling like they're bad in the first book, right? Because the first book literally ends with, where was Darius when the charred body was on the ground, where people are saying the only thing that could do that was dragonfire? Like, totally negates that for you. Which I didn't think that it was him anyway, because he's a main character.
Weird.
Well, what the hell? Like,
he could be bad.
Stop. I know it's not Darius, because he's trying to defeat his dad.
Yeah.
That's literally been their whole goal for a long time. And I know it's not Orion, because he's my little sweetheart cinnamon roll.
Like,
and Gabe wouldn't be friends with him.
Cinnamon roll. Yeah.
Gabe wouldn't be friends with him.
Gabe is his nebulous ally. Him and Gabe are allies.
That makes sense. I think they talked about it a little bit in Ruthless Boys. But they're my little favorite people. And you get a little bit into the relationship in here, and it makes me really happy. It makes me really happy that he's more like in this, because I loved Gabe.
I did not. So I will say, in Ruthless Boys, I did not like Gabe. On the ranking of the guys, he was at the bottom for me. Zodiac Academy happened, and I'm like, Gabe. I love him. And it's because of the stuff that happens in Zodiac Academy that I'm just like.
It just like, okay, we're going to take a little bit into Ruthless Boys really quick. When he needed the branch for his home.
No.
I'm going to cry.
No, wait, hold on. That nesting thing of the branch things comes into play in Zodiac Academy, and it is the funniest scene I have ever read in my entire life. And when we get there, it's like book 6 or 7. When we get there, we're going to be laughing so hard we're crying, because trying to talk about that nesting scene.
I love it.
Oh gosh, you'll see.
It makes my whole heart happy, and then he makes a house for them. Spoiler. He makes a house for them. If you haven't read Ruthless Boys, go read Ruthless Boys. It's so good.
But that same whole aspect that harpies need branches and they need to make a nest comes back into play. It is so funny.
Anyway,
yes.
Okay, let's start talking about this book. So like I said, prologue. Darius and Orion are fighting nymphs. There's nothing really like crazy that you get from this. It's more so like it is the prologue, right? It's introducing what's going on. One of the bigger things that I pointed out in this one was their swords. Orion has a long silver sword in his hand, and then Darius has I think it's like a cleaver or a hammer or something that is silver. Later in the book, you'll see that Orion has it on a keychain. He shrinks it, and it has a dick and balls on it. And I thought that was the funniest thing. I was like, of course you make Darius his fucking, one of his biggest weapons, a dick and balls. I was like, thank you. Thank you for that. But what they're looking for a cursed item that the nymphs hold, and they end up finding it. Okay. So they kill a couple nymphs, and then they end up tracking them. Darius, again, so you hear about this in Ruthless Boys too. Dragons are not supposed to let people ride on them.
Because of Darius' father, Lionel, being the head of the dragons and being like, we're above everybody.
Yeah.
We are not pack mules. Nobody should ride on a dragon. And it's kind of like not like a law, but like a very heavily enforced guideline that Dante kind of just throws out the window every chance he gets. And Darius is allowing Orion to ride
and he
on
gets
him.
a thrill from it, and it makes me giggle.
He's like, fuck you, Dad. I do what I want.
Anyway, so they find the thing. So yeah, they kill the nymphs. They end up finding it. I also highlighted this one little piece. Lance almost misses out on saving Darius from the big nymph. And the banter between Lance and Orion, this is when you really come into it, because in the first book, the girls don't really notice like the love between
the two of them,
Lance and Darius. And he goes, took your fucking time on that one. There was a little one hiding over there. Damn things had figured out our maneuver and tried to get the jump on me. He says, well, fuck them. And then Orion goes, fucked them up the ass with one of their own probes. I was like, oh my God, guys, you're just, one of them just almost died.
And then right after that, it says, his hand slid up my chest. Fuck me, you're forward tonight, baby. I teased him.
Oh, you know me,
so
big
funny.
boy. Any excuse to cop a feel. You might have to keep that dragon dick tucked away for now, because it doesn't look like this one had it. Like the
They're-
banter between the two of them just
They're
makes me really happy.
So funny.
And they love each other. And it makes it like very well known in the book too. It's not a like, it appears sexual. It makes them like be very touchy-feely with one another, but it is not sexual in nature. Like it does not make them want to fuck each other.
It just makes them want to be close to each other.
Yes. They want to touch each other.
And
They
it
want to cop a
feels good.
feel.
And it feels good when they're close to each other, which is why it kind of leads to sex in some instances.
Yes.
Like
But-
with Clara and Lionel.
Yes. But it is not sexual in nature for the two of them. But they joke around about it. And then, so they go to find the other nymphs that did have it. And they beat it and they get it. And they say it's an amulet of some kind. And then Darius says it's old. He said something festering at its core, which spoke of the darkness within it and the shadows, which Lance had been able to sense clinging to it. Any idea why they wanted it? No idea. And then Darius puts it in his hand and he goes to consume it with his dragon fire. And just as the last of them were about to be consumed, my fire burnt out, and I cursed as the heat fell on my flesh, and one lone slither of darkness pushed its way into the cuts on my hand and dove beneath my skin. So this is usually how a lot of dark magic starts, is with a blood offering. He had been cut by the amulet while he was trying to burn it, and a piece of the darkness got inside his skin, inside his blood. He was dragged into the dark where the shadows lingered, and their realm seemed so much closer than it ever had before. And he was like trying to get out of it, because that's what you need to do. You need to ground yourself and remember where you are, and you need to stay there. And while he was in there, the only thing that was able to pull him out was a vision. Green eyes peering into my soul, and the brush of lips against mine, so hot and powerful that I could taste that kiss right down to my core. A name in the dark which sounded like a plea or a promise, and words which hung in my mind like they'd been spoken from the stars themselves. Choose wisely, Dragonborn. The greatest treasure is the hardest one.
What do you think that is?
Who do we know has green eyes?
And the fact that it says a promise, which hung in my mind, spoken from the stars themselves. What's a promise from the stars themselves?
No idea.
Regarding another person. If you haven't read Ruthless Boys, you have no idea.
I do. So again, we did read Ruthless Boys, and this is an honest review. So immediately, I already kind of knew it before.
Yeah.
It's very obvious. Like the book does not hide the fact that they're most likely mates.
If you haven't read Ruthless Boys, maybe you're just like, kind of like unsure about it. But if you've read Ruthless Boys and you know that Elysian mates are a thing, as soon as they even interact with each other, you're like, they're mates. I can tell from a mile away.
You could tell by the way that Tori is super attracted to him. You could also tell with Darcy and Orion immediately.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of my first things in the book is I underlined it or I highlighted it and I was like, mates? Easy. I have not had mostly any of this spoiled for me. Like, I have been staying away from it. I'm not super big on TikTok, so I really don't see a lot of like Zodiac Academy stuff.
Spoilers.
And so I haven't had anything like that spoiled for me, but I knew immediately. I was like, easy.
And this kind of just like confirms it. Binks. But it does say, be careful and choose wisely because it's hard to win.
And it does it with Orion too, which we'll talk about in a little bit, where it kind of is like hinting to the fact that they might lose them. But anyway, and then Lance slaps him and he finally comes back and he totally forgets. Gone. And then they go back and it's really, really cute because this is a very like cuddly scene from them and they fall asleep just wrapped up in each other because they need to be close to each other.
Yep.
And everything that they were talking about, we locked eyes, that unending bond hanging in the air between us, that one intrinsic goal laying there like it always did. I needed to keep working tirelessly to achieve it. I needed to continue to grow in my strength in every way I possibly could. I needed to harness my power with everything I had so that I could rise up and challenge my father. It was all that mattered.
Yeah.
All we worked for. The only chance either of us would ever get at any real semblance of freedom in our lives. I needed to take Lionel A. Crooks's place on the Celestial Council, and there was nothing I wouldn't do to achieve that. Nothing.
Yep.
There you go.
We already know.
Sets up the entire thing.
Yep.
And then they ended together. Then we go into Orion's POV. So another thing to mention that we hadn't said yet is this book takes place before. So like this is the whole start of
Story.
the awakening. So the prologue was before the awakening started. And now the first chapter with Orion, we are with him in the mortal world when he was picking up the girls.
He's been there for a while.
He's been there for 3 months.
Down. Yeah.
And he's finally like on the last little bit. Yeah. Yep. He's on that last little bit where he's about to find them, and we know what the girls are going on. We know what the girls have going on. And so he's outside the house.
Trying to find a way
Tori,
to
or
like
Darcy
run
broke
into them.
And he goes, a flash of blue in my periphery made my head whip sideways, and I frowned as I spotted the back of the girl with blue-tipped hair, Darcy. Her sneakers kicked against the wall, and she growled angrily as she fought to get up. This is when she was breaking into the house. Her ass wiggled left to right as her hips got stuck in the tight gap. An ass that was drawing way too much of my attention. Okay, my dude.
Starting off strong.
So it goes through how he took the money, and then he gets a text from Noxie, Gabriel Knox.
If you've read Ruthless
That's
Boy,
my
you
boy.
know that's Gabriel Knox.
So he essentially tells him, hey, you need to take that cash. At this point, he doesn't know what the cash is talking about, but we know from the awakening that he went in and he took Darcy's cash out of her when she dropped it and kept it. And we know that he eventually gave it back to them in the apartment. But it's how he lost her there. And then it goes into how he found Tori. When she stole the bike.
Convinced her to come back.
Convinced her to come back, went through all of that. And then it says, her magical signature invaded the crystal until all I could feel was what felt like the cool kiss of the moon against my palm. It was strange how two twins could feel so different. Because he had mentioned earlier that Darcy felt like sunshine. She felt like the sun. And Tori feels like the moon inside the crystal. The crystal is really just reading their magical signatures, trying to help him find them. But that was something that I wanted to point out was Tori is the moon. Darcy is the sun, which comes into play later. They talk a lot about, with Orion, how like he needs to get out of the darkness and reach toward the light. And I'm like, what light could you be talking about? And he says, I was partial to the night considering my order was linked to the moon. He is a vampire. Normal. But for some reason, I missed the touch of sunshine in my palm in the warmth of her sister's presence. Weird.
It's so cute.
So it talks about how he got into their apartment, and
when he first shows up, the first thing he thinks is this girl was beautiful in a way that ran somehow deeper than her skin, in a way that I could feel. I'm like, you just met her, Lance. You know what mates are, and yet you don't even give it a second thought.
She took me in with equal scrutiny, and for a moment, it felt like we were two animals about to rip each other's flesh. No, it was something other than that. It wasn't a fight I wanted. My cock was stirring in my pants, and a possessive growl was building in my throat. Both Vegas were attractive, but something about this one was mesmerizing. I couldn't, for the life of me, tear my eyes away from her. And then this is where Darcy thinks that he and Tori are about to sleep together. And he goes, great. She thinks I'm here to fuck her sister. Not that it matters what she thinks. She's going to be my student. And then it talks about how he comes back at her. And he goes, I thought I was coming here to collect a couple of 18-year-olds. Must have gotten the wrong apartment, little bunny. That never ceases to
Make me laugh.
Make me giggle.
Little bunny.
And then further into that conversation,
He tells them,
don't play dumb with me. She pointed at me as her heart rate picked up even further, and I liked that I was affecting her like this, though I definitely shouldn't have been thinking the thoughts crossing my mind about her. That blue hair would look so fucking good wrapped around my fist. By the stars, she's gonna be your damn student, idiot.
He starts talking to them about like where they came from, trying to convince them to come back, and then there's another part where another thought runs through his mind. He goes, of course, then my treacherous mind ran to the dangerous place where my punishments involved me pushing her down on my desk and spanking her ass raw, and I cursed myself internally. What the fuck is the matter with me?
Yep.
And he just met her, and he doesn't even think about that. Like, how weird that is.
And then they're talking about, yes, but not just any school, the best school. So they're talking about coming to Zodiac. And he goes, so what do you say? Darcy goes, I say you're crazy, Darcy said, and I had a vision of showing her just how crazy I could be. Not an appropriate one, though. The kind where she was pinned beneath me, gasping my name.
Ryan.
My dude. And then he also talks about, again, which is really key to point out here. Like, this is why they're very much so pointing towards the fact that they're mates.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe, like you said, if they hadn't read Ruthless Boys, they wouldn't understand what the mates were.
Yeah.
But, like, there's obvious that there's something going on with these two. Because he literally says, for some reason, her twin of the exact same figure hadn't stirred anything in me. But this one had my cock throbbing and my mind spinning with filthy fantasies I could never, ever act on. You fucking idiot. So he is the one that's, like, psyching himself out about it and not thinking clearly about the fact that she could be something to him.
For a good reason, though, because he is a professor of Zodiac Academy. Like, he could be sent to Darkmoor for that, for, like, getting caught with a student. So I don't blame him for not being like...
And you don't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that they're mates.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's very obvious to us, but in the book, obviously, he doesn't know right away. My feet hit the ground and Darcy stumbled into me, her forehead bumping against my chest. So this is when they got to Zodiac Academy for the awakening. Her hand pressed to my stomach, and the point of contact sent a burning, almost unbearable need in me to take hold of her, bite her, claim her. This is huge. So a lot in the book, he talks about wanting to bite her, wanting her blood, wanting her power. Every single time he talks about it with Darcy, he talks about wanting to claim her.
Yep. And then... right when he dropped them down, the very last paragraph of his like point of view, it says, maybe it was the power of their blood that called to me, but it was only Darcy who had made me fucking burn with unwanted need. I doubted I could put it down to that. One thing was for sure, I'd be cutting these twisted urges out of me just as soon as I could. They were not going to affect anything about what came next, because the Vega twins would not be ascending to the throne. It was my duty to make sure of that, and no girl with blue-tipped hair and bunny pajamas was going to fuck with my plans.
Exactly. He also mentions that he's not going to tell Darius about it. This is huge. He tells Darius everything. They're the two that are closest to each other.
And he does not.
He literally says, but there was one thing for sure I wouldn't tell even Darius about this night. That I felt a pull to one of them that defied all logic and made my hatred for them deepen.
He knows deep down there's something there.
Weird.
Why else would he not tell Darius about
Weird,
it?
you little butt muncher. Meanie. Bobini.
Meanie Bobini.
Anyway, so the next chapter
is Darius.
we're with Darius. And it's...
them sitting on the red couch.
Yep, waiting for everybody to show up. They have no idea about the elements that these girls have.
They just know that the Vegas were retrieved and that they would be there that night.
Yes. So they're hanging out, and it kind of goes through like how they're putting on a facade to everybody about acting cool. They put up a silencing bubble so they can talk within themselves about how they're actually feeling. And here we get a lot of like insight into them. So the first thing that I have highlighted about this chapter is I had one shining beacon of hope for their safety, though, talking about his family. One single purpose, which my father had snarled in my face while pinning me against his office wall this morning. I needed to get rid of the Vega problem for him. He wanted them broken, unable to even raise their gaze to meet ours, let alone consider standing against us. And I was more than happy to take on the task if it meant keeping him happy, keeping my family safe from his rage. So we know, you guys don't know
even
this.
right before that, it says... he spent the entirety of his summer shielding Xavier and his mother from his dad's wrath.
So we know this because of Ruthless Boys. If you didn't read Ruthless Boys, Lionel is the worst type of person. He beats his kids. Darius is literally his punching bag all the time for all of his anger. And he knows that Darius is like not immune to it, but like immune to it, right? Yeah. He just gets it so often that it's like nothing for him anymore.
Become, like, normal.
So now he is starting to target the people that Darius loves, which is Xavier, his younger brother, who I have theories about Xavier.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to be a dragon.
Okay.
I think he's going to hold more than 2 elements. And I think that he is going to come into himself because he has not... His order has not come out yet. He's also not built like a dragon. They made sure to mention that.
What do you think his order will be? Just what order do you think he could possibly be that would piss Lionel
Hydra.
off the most? No.
Damn it. No. Does it come out? Okay, so
It's in book 2 or 3.
because Xavier is coming there next
I
year.
think it's 3 was when it comes out.
Xavier is getting to the age where he's going to be able to come to the school. Is he the one that gets with my girl,
Which girl?
my wolf girl? I
Rosalie?
forgot her name. Yeah.
No.
Oh, who does she sleep with throughout the series?
Caleb.
Don't tell me. You told me.
And another person?
Is she the one involved in this?
She has a threesome with 2 heirs, and it is so good.
All right. We'll get there. Spoilers. But yes. So I do not think he's gonna be a dragon. I don't know what he's gonna be yet.
I didn't have a clue. I just knew it would be something that would be low enough order-wise, according to Lionel, that would piss him off. And there's only a couple orders that are like super low that you're like,
Is he gonna be a rat?
You'll see. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You will see. But
Anyway, I do think he's gonna have a lot of elemental power though, because he picks on Darius in the beginning. He literally says, "You only got 2 elements. Well, we still have your brother to wait and see if he'll have more than 2."
mm-hmm. Interesting. I like your theories. Okay.
So, going on that, he is trying to save Xavier. Xavier will be coming to the school next year, so that's like one of his shining things of I won't have to deal with my dad destroying him while I'm not there.
We see Geraldine freaked out about the twins.
This is the introduction of Geraldine, and I think it's absolutely adorable. She goes, "I very much doubt you have the skills required to know when a lady is about to orgasm, you vulgar ruffian. So kindly take your eyes off my visage and return to your lollygagging with the other mutts on the reject pile."
Because he sees Geraldine, Max sees Geraldine getting super excited about the twins coming.
Mm-hmm. He says, "Have you been flicking the bean over this moment all week?"
Because you look like you're about ready to come from excitement alone, and that's when she has that like little comeback. Geraldine is my favorite. She's so funny.
And Geraldine is holding a gift for the twins.
Mm-hmm.
So the heirs steal it with magic, and she had written something on it. She says, "Oh, glorious queens who were lost for so long, where have you been all this time you were gone? I wished on a star for a miracle to come, and now you've returned. I know I got one. I miss you more than words can say, and I pledge my devotion to you on this day." So from the Awakening, we know Geraldine is like, #1 supporter, my girls, my queens. And we know why.
And we know her dad was loyal to the king.
And we also learn in here that they call them loyalists, or royalists, where they're people that support the crown and not the counselors. Mm-hmm. They want the actual true heirs on the throne. And I'm not sure if it's right now, but eventually we get into, I'm going to read it. I have it highlighted. We're going to get into like what the royalists are doing now that the heirs have been brought back.
Yeah.
But after this is when the new tributes start coming in. Mm-hmm. I say tributes. The new freshmen are coming in. Yeah. And Darius locks eyes with one of them. Mm-hmm. And he says, or he was about to say something to Caleb, and it says, "My lips parted to say something, but I forgot what it had been as my gaze fell on the girl who had just stepped into the room. My thumping pulse picked up speed for a wholly different reason as I drank her in. Long, black hair tumbled down her spine. Her green eyes turned up towards the curving roof as she drank in the sight of the building she was in. Her lips were full and primed for tasting, but the set of her mouth said she was more used to frowning than smiling. She was without a doubt the most stunning creature I'd ever laid my eyes upon, and I couldn't help but stare at her as she moved deeper into the room with the other students." So another silencing bubble went up, and Caleb says, "Holy fuck." And then Darius says, "Mine." Mm-hmm. He says, "Mine," I snarled, the beast in me waking up and my eyes shifting into reptilian slits as if my dragon was aching for a look at her too. And then he was talking about laying his claim. The dragon in me demanded it. And then you hear, "Well, shit, I didn't consider the fact that they might be hot," Seth cursed, and I frowned a little at his words. Max says, "That'll make things more interesting." Caleb said, "I want to know how good they taste." And then they say, oh, great, Nova is straight in for an ass licking. Guess who she grabs? Darcy and Tori, who Tori happens to be that girl that Darius has been locked on this whole time. And he says, my heart lurched as I spotted the girl right beside her, wondering how the fuck I could have missed the fact that there were two of them. Well, I'd been so caught up in staring at her.
It's just like Lance 2.0, the whole thing.
Right here. The second girl looked strikingly like her sister, though for some reason I felt like I'd know which was which in the dark. I wasn't sure what it was, but despite their equally attractive looks, my attention was pulled back towards the first girl like the stars wanted it to be on her.
Mates. How are they throughout this entire book where they're like, I wonder what their orders could be. I wonder why I'm so attracted to them. I'm like, you guys are the two dumbest people I have ever met in my entire life. They're just And when Lance has seen with his own eyes 4 Legion mates and what that relationship in that pool looks like. He's seen it. And he doesn't think anything of it. He's just like, oh well.
The stars wanted it to be on her. Oh my God. So frustrating. But then Lance tells them that they got all four elements. Shit's about to get interesting. And then the first thing that Darius does is text Max. Or not Max, I'm sorry. Xavier. Why did I say Max? Text Xavier, his brother, and he says the girl's got all 4 elements. And Xavier tells him 2 steps ahead of you, already arranged for Mom to take me to visit with one of her boring friends tonight. Meaning they got out of the house so that Lionel couldn't hurt them. Because that's really the biggest thing that Darius is concerned about is he doesn't want his dad to hurt his mom and brother. I know.
My heart for them.
Extremely sad.
The heirs are freaking out, saying this is really, really bad. We have a goal and we have to stick to that. We have to go as hard as we have to.
And then you go through what Nova said. We talked about this in the first book. And then he says, I dragged my eyes up and over every inch of her body, lingering on her mouth for a beat too long before finding her eyes. My fist clenched as I met her green gaze, and it felt like a shot of power snapped from her soul right into mine. I was held captive there, wanting her and hating her for it.
When Nova introduces them and they say that they don't want their names, this is another one that I highlighted. So it says, I rolled the idea of her preferred name around in my mind, finding I both liked the idea of that and didn't at once. If I called her Tori, then I could let myself forget who she was, what she was, and I could play pretend with these fantasies I was having and maybe let myself get a little too carried away with them. So the reason why he's calling her Roxana all the way through
Roxy.
All the way through book 1 and the rest of the series is so he does not get close to her and he does not forget that he's
putting a wall.
Is in line for the throne. Sad.
And then it also goes through like everything that happened with when they got there, the names. It goes through
their picking their houses and going through their 2 different like hazing situations.
It also goes through when Caleb bit her. When he bit Tori. The dragon in me was a possessive motherfucker, and all I could think of while I watched her in his arms was that I would really enjoy tearing him away from her and beating the ever-living shit out of his pretty boy face. We know the heirs are the closest ones.
They're like
ever. They're brothers.
They're brothers.
Throughout the series, it says we're brothers. They call each other brother. Like, they're very, very, very close. This, to me, was a huge, like, Darius, you're a dumbass motherfucker. If you know that this is the way you're feeling, tell him. If you've hung out with us in the Spicy Book Nook long enough, you will know that is one of my biggest things.
What really pisses me off.
Not just telling people.
What really, really, really pisses me off the entirety of book 1. The rest of the series before you start to like the boys is they're concerned because they don't want them to be on the throne because they don't know anything about their world.
But they don't tell them.
They don't tell them. That's what the council was made for. The council was made as a family of higher up people within the realm to help the king and queen make decisions and lead them and stuff like that. They don't want to take their rightful spot to like lead them. And then also they don't think especially from Darius's perspective, he doesn't want his dad to be in charge, to rule or whatever. Yet he has these 2 girls with so much power in 4 elements. And instead of having them
instead
on
of working
his
with
side,
them,
instead of being
they're working
like,
against them.
join us.
Who
and
does
we'll
that
take 'em
sound
on."
like?
He's like,
Tell me that doesn't sound very Lionel-like.
ugh, I hate it. I hate it so much. I'm like, do you know how much easier your life would be if you just agreed to bow to them
But they're Fae, Allison.
and be on the council?
They're Fae.
But they're more powerful than them.
Not yet.
I'm just like, you could take out your dad so quickly if you just wasn't a dick.
Yeah.
It irritates me so much.
Another thing that really irritates me, yes, is they don't just talk to them and they don't just tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just explain.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's easier for us to say on this side, right? Because we kind of know what's going on better.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you're the good guys. Why are you acting like douchebags?
Which is also another really like annoying piece is they are, even throughout this book, you'll really see it where they're trying to do their best in the situation. There are a bunch of young guys that are like thrust in this position from their families
Another thing
and told to get rid of them.
that I don't understand, okay, is Darius literally talks about, Lance talks about it, all of the heirs talk about how bad it was under the king's rule.
Mm-hmm.
Has it gotten any better?
Mm-mm. I mean, they do. I think they said it in book 1 where there was like a lot of public executions and things like that under the king's rule. So there's none of that going on right now. But
Everything else around them has
it's the
not
exact
gotten
same.
better.
Yeah.
So how are they to say that these girls are going to come in and make everything so much worse when it really hasn't even gotten better?
And they don't even know them.
And
They didn't even
we're
grow
going
up
to talk
with
about this
their
in a minute.
under the king. So they like, yeah.
Also, like I said in the first video, I'm going to make a list of everything that Geraldine says. I was pretty sure I heard Geraldine Garus whoop and call him a pestersome plankton after Darcy had
Pestersome
thrown
plankton.
him across the room. And then it kind of goes into why, like, everything that was happening with Max and when he was coming back to go after the girls. And then we go into them picking their houses.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls are like pretty upset about it. And we already know that Darcy chose air
Mm-hmm.
and Tori chose fire. And when she chose fire, Darius was like completely out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he says to her, "So what is it? A death wish or stupidity?" She says, "I've known a lot of men who talk a big game in my lifetime, but most of them are just posturing assholes who don't have the balls to back it up. And I get the feeling that just might be you all over." He goes, "Nah." She says, "No? Why don't you enlighten me then?" And he says, "I think you're looking for something to wake you up. Something to rattle your cage and get your heart pumping. You aren't hoping I'm less than I make out. You're hoping I'm all of that and more, because that fire in you is looking for something to make it burn hotter." How fucking cute. Like, he's not meaning it in a cute way, but
Mm-hmm.
like, my heart. Like,
It's so cute. And it goes back to when at some point in book 1 where she was like, I want to make him respect me. I'm like, they're so cute.
And then we move into Seth's POV.
Mm-hmm.
We know where this is going. We know this is Darcy pledging.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of goes into his POV of like the whole thing and about how he feels about Darcy actually doing the jumps when he was trying to like intimidate
Frighten
her.
her,
He
yeah.
wanted her to lay down and beg. And Darcy did not.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Darcy jumps, so she jumped off the step, she goes, "That's not funny." And he says, What's really not funny is you and your sister showing up here to steal our throne. He essentially is saying that he did not want. Okay, right here. Sorry. "That's not funny." Darcy blew out, her hair all fucked up from the hood and looking sexy as hell. She fucking smiled, like she found the joke amusing and that wasn't gonna do. She was meant to be the butt of it, not part of it. So he was like getting upset that she wasn't cowering down and whimpering at his feet.
Upset and
so we know that he takes her out to the thing, and it goes into his.
There's another part literally right after that paragraph that I wanted to say. He had caught her wrist and assessed her, and he goes, and there it was, hidden deep, but I could see it, her fae, burning in the depths of those dark green eyes, and it wasn't even close to being innocent. Hello, savage princess.
I mean, you're being an asshole. What do you expect? You want her to just be this sweet little flowering girl that's like, yes, master.
I'll do whatever you say.
But we know that he takes her out to the tower, and he is in his head. He says, and yet some small part of me occasionally rose its head and told me to stop. Because he's wrestling with himself right now because he doesn't want to be a dick, but he has been raised by his family to not care. And this is a big part of like Seth's, a little bit of his backstory, where he says, she threw her shoulder back at me, but I didn't let go, hauling her toward the huge set of glass doors that led onto the balcony. I hesitated for a second, wondering if I was going too far, but then I remembered my mother's words to me. Don't ever let your enemies see you have a heart. I'd always been the cruelest of my pack. It was what made me such a powerful alpha. She encouraged my ruthlessness, showered me with gifts every time I showed no mercy to Fae who tried to challenge me. It was that I was best at, what I was honed to do. So he's internally having a trial with himself because he doesn't want to be mean.
Whenever he
pushes it away.
He says, when I told my mom about him having those second thoughts, she'd said that voice was weakness and that I should never let it affect my decisions. If I was going to rule the kingdom one day, I need to be cold, detached, and make choices for the greater good without latching any emotion to them.
But as a shiver ran through Darcy's flesh into mine, that little voice grew louder and told me to stop. He did not stop. And then when she jumped, he was going to save her.
He wasn't going to have her jump. He was just trying to make a show of it.
He just wanted her to cower, and she did not. So he goes, she was going to hit the ground. She couldn't cast air magic on command like that. Underestimated number one. She'd only just been awakened. Fuck. Holy shit on the moon. Fuck. And then people were yelling that she's going to die. And he says, I was about to stop Darcy from impacting with the ground when she caught herself on a gust of air and came to a sudden halt. My shoulders sagged, and I carved a hand over my face. My relief, dying fast, as a bunch of students around me started whooping and cheering her on. And then he went in to have a group orgy.
Like werewolves do.
So something else that I want to point out is Seth is very much, he talked about it a lot in his chapter. He likes to have sex with a lot of people, with men and women. And Kylie, which is a big character, we talked about her a lot in the first book, is Seth's girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he's like...
He's
kind of over her,
kind of with her, but like also still having pack orgies.
Because his pack was at school, so over the summer he was fucking with Kylie. And now that they're back at school, the first night he did was have a huge orgy, and he's like, I just want someone to suck my cock while I'm watching someone else get fucked from behind over there. Yeah, like that's all he wants.
That's also just a huge part of
pack culture.
Pack culture. You see it a lot in Darkmoor, when it goes more into like, because Rosalie's a werewolf. But that's what all werewolves do. So, like, the fact that Kylie is like, no, I'm his girlfriend and I'm the one meant for him. And he's like, but I have, like, 12 other people here that would be more than happy to
do all of that for me.
Do all of it for me.
Probably better than her.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, that was a big, like, part of, like, getting to know Seth a little bit. So, in the first book, when he literally said, I'm not monogamous, he was not lying. At all.
Then we go to Darius's perspective as Tori is going through her little initiation.
And it talks a lot about how he's admiring her. Like when he makes the dragon and flies it over them and she doesn't cower back. She's very much so in it. And then because he was waiting for someone to step up to take it, we know that she did it first. So this is kind of explaining what was going through his head while she stepped up to be the first one. His spine straightened as she kept on walking, making her way towards me while looking decidedly unimpressed and not the least bit afraid. Fuck, I wanted to know what made her tick. I wanted to pull her apart and find out what went on beneath her skin. Because if her blood ran as cold as the aura she was giving off, then I was going to have trouble with this little ice queen. But that description, just didn't seem right to me. Because more than once, I'd seen a flash of heat in her, the kind of fire that I just couldn't resist getting closer to, needing to find out what it felt like to burn in it. And then she starts and goes through the initiation thing. I forgot what it's called.
And then he's upstairs waiting for the people to come through. And Margaret comes and is kind of like hanging all over him.
And he's kind of like over her.
He's specifically waiting for when Tori's going to reappear.
Yes, he's waiting to see how long it's going to take her, if she even gets through it. And they're talking about Darcy here, or Tori here. And they go, guys are in the back talking about her. And they say, those Vega chicks are seriously hot, though. You have to give them that. And then Marguerite says, they didn't seem like anything special to me. And he's essentially just talking about how they're jealous bitches, and he snorted at them. And then Marguerite turns because she heard that, and she goes, I thought they looked totally plain. Don't you think so, sweetie? And then he says, I think you should look again. Give me some space. I need to concentrate on the initiation. So right after this happens, Tori, why do I keep saying Darcy? Tori was about to end the trials.
Come
fastest that anyone's ever done it before. As a freshman, with him also making it way harder on her. He literally is, he says he made it senior level. Spotted a barefooted, soot-stained Vega princess striding towards it with victory flaring in her eyes. So before she could get there,
he does the final challenge
he says, I could practically hear my father's sneering voice now, feel the smack of his fist against my flesh as he took out his fury over my failure at this one simple task on my body. Sad. Heartbreaking. And then he throws up a firewall. Final challenge. We know what happens here. And she walks through it. And he's like, pissed. He goes, I expected the seconds to tick by while she considered the challenge. But that didn't happen. Yet again, the girl with burning eyes surprised me with her gall, and with her chin held high and step sure, she strode right on through the fire. So after this, we know, because of book 1, that Tori is like internally trying not to cry. Yeah. She is so embarrassed. She is having like the worst time. And all he sees from her is
like strength.
And he says, I was an asshole, a total fucking asshole, and yet I couldn't not look. She was all firm muscle and perfect curves, her tits full and heavy with peak nipples that made the dragon in me growl with the desire to step closer to her. And then he goes, fuck, she was even hotter when she was furious. I seriously wouldn't have minded her taking her the anger out on my body all night long. So he's like trying, just imagining having sex with her through all of this, and she's trying not to cry. He says, I waited for her to crumple, to throw her hands around her body, and maybe even start crying. My gut twisted at that thought. But I steeled myself against the moment of weakness and held my head high because this was better. Better she fall apart now and realize that she wasn't needed here. She needed to fall at my feet and beg me to stop. But she didn't do any of that. Motherfucker, Roxy snarled, starting towards me with her hand curled like a fist like she wanted to strike me. And then she says, I had nearly $3,000 in my pocket. Do you know how hard my sister and I worked for that money? He goes, I almost laughed at her outburst. She doesn't know the amount of money that is waiting for her in Solaria. She has no idea. And he was like amazed that was what she cared about and not the fact that she was standing naked in front of all of her peers. He goes, I was so stuck in this endless rotation of classes and training to be a counselor one day, mixed in with the constant threat of my father's shadow looming over me and my brother, that the only times that I ever felt truly awake these days were when Lance and I went hunting nymphs. And we hadn't even been able to do that for months while he'd been hunting Vegas in the mortal realm instead. So he's like, this is a breath of fresh air for him. Like, she's a challenge to him, and he loves it. He keeps saying, like, if I didn't watch out, I had a feeling I might just get addicted to the fire in this girl's eyes, the honesty of her dislike of me, and the refreshing taste of her open hostility on the air. Like, he's, like I said, it's a breath of fresh air for him. And then he gives her room, and he goes, if you want to find something to wear. And then he says, of course, if you'd rather just come up to my room, I can give you a real welcome. And I wouldn't come near you even if someone held a knife to my heart and told me that the world would end if it didn't. So why don't you take a long, hard look while you can, because I can promise you won't be seeing this again. I wasn't entirely sure. Okay, hang on, sorry. The laughter died out around the took everyone in attendance took a collective breath, waiting for his retaliation. He had no idea what to say to this woman. He had never been rejected before. This is the first time it happened, and he, like, didn't know how to react to her. He said, I had her there, standing naked amongst a group of her peers and shamed in front of all of them, yet she'd somehow just flipped the table on me, rejected me, loudly and clearly in front of the entire room. I wasn't sure I'd ever had a woman reject me at all, let alone so blatantly. And she just turned around and left. And he tried to, like, come back at her with that little remark, and nothing. And he went to walk up the stairs. And he had the strangest urge to just walk over and knock on her door. We know she was crying in her room. And if he had that urge to go over and comfort her, like, he would have found out that she was actually upset and crying and upset in her room. And he didn't.
But he didn't.
He ignored it. And then one of the biggest parts of this chapter, I think, which is where I figured out for myself what the girls... At least with Tori, what her order was going to be.
The tattoo?
Because he is pissed off, so he's going to change into his dragon form because he's going to meet at the Hollow. He talks about a tattoo that he got.
Randomly.
And he says, I had woken up on the 11th of June. Tick, tick, tick. What is that day? What day is that?
What day is it?
What day is it, Allison?
No, what day is it?
It's their birthday. It's the day that they turned 18.
And their magic, that's when their magic like flared and like came to life, and then that's when
how everybody
they knew that
knew to
they
go
were
after
in
them.
the mortal realm.
With the image seared right into the backs of my eyelids. First off, how the fuck did he not put that together? He knew that that was their birthday when their magic started.
Yeah, you find out that your enemies, your long lost enemies, are still alive on a certain day. They just like reappeared, and that's the same day that you get this vision to mark yourself with this tattoo. Yeah.
Seared into the back of my eyelids, and the urge to mark my skin with it, itching at me so insistently that I'd headed out that day to get it done. The dragon and the phoenix curved around each other like they were playing out a scene from legends long since dead, but something about the way the two of them almost seemed to actually move across my skin always set me at peace when I looked at them.
Cute.
Also, mates.
Then they go to the King's Hollow. They ask them how it was.
And Seth goes, she fucking jumped, you guys. Oh, man. It was, yeah. And then Caleb is like trying to provoke Darius. And he says, oh wait, no, Max is reading your emotions. And he says, but you had a little shot of lust over the idea, Seth. Seth says, oh, I'm sorry. Am I not allowed to appreciate the hotness of my friends? Okay. No, they were talking about giving Darius a blowjob. And this is when Seth says, oh, I'm sorry. Am I not allowed to appreciate the hotness of my friends? You know, I'd always consider some camaraderie BJs to help ease our stress. Though I feel like Darius might choke me with his dragon dick, so I might have to take it slow if I... And Caleb, like, swatted him off. They said the counselors made it clear of what we need to do, and you know how our parents can get over anything that might tarnish our reputations. And that's kind of how it ended, is they're, like, agreeing that they need to... get rid of the girls.
Yep.
And then we move into an Orion chapter.
Where he's cuddling with Darius.
He had a long night, lots of alcohol, and woke up in Darius's bed. I kind of giggled at this one.
There's a quote where Darius goes, is that your cock digging into my hip? Darius murmured. I reached between us, grunting as I tugged out the empty bottle of bourbon. You wish, baby.
Right before that, literally the paragraph right before it. I had no idea where it was all going to end up for me, but this path probably led nowhere good. The further I walked along it, the more withdrawn and bitter I became. My smiles were growing rarer, and my light had dulled a long time ago. This hollow life was probably going to kill me one day, and maybe that would be for the best. Orion's in a tough spot right now.
He's very depressed. He lost his sister. The only thing that's really keeping him going right now is
Darius.
Training Darius to
take over
Lionel.
And even that is like starting to wear away for him. Like it's just not good.
He's
right there he's saying maybe him dying would be for the best. And then, is that your cock digging into my hip? And then Darius wakes up, realizes he's late for class, and they talk about how Orion is gonna. This is right before the first day of Cardinal Magic, where he meets the twins in his first class. And Darius is like, assess everything about them, strengths and weaknesses. I want a list. And then as Darius is leaving, Professor Washer, who we know is a fucking creep from the first book, knocks on Lance's door and has a very weird conversation with him. Like, this is so, like, out there. I was like, okay, this must be something important. Washer's a weirdo. Something's gonna happen with him. Because here's where you find out that he is fucking the principal. Lionel does not want Lance to mess with Washer because he's fucking the principal and wants the principal on his side. And then he's like trying to get him to be naked with him. Super weird. And Lance literally says, if this asshole wasn't fucking my boss, I'd have put him in his place a long time ago. And then talks about Professor Astrom and how he bit him. And he got in a lot of trouble because that guy was a royalist and fucking hated me as it was. But now he was the ringleader of the I Hate Lance Orion Club. So this we know because we know that Astrom, whatever, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, was Falling Star. Because that was revealed in book 1. And we know that he was warning the girls against Lance. So that's like, that gives us a background of why he was warning them against Lance. And it kind of talks about how Lance got in trouble. He had to smooth things over. And then he goes to get coffee because he's just having a shitty day, walks into his class late. And then it goes over their first day. And then he goes over the orders and all of that stuff. More cock twitching with Darcy.
But yes, right before that, when he's worried about the first day in the Vegas and all that's happening. And he goes, one simple tarot reading was enough to tell me something big was coming. I just couldn't see what. Even Gabriel couldn't give me a straight answer, and his fortune-telling skills were unrivaled. Though I suspected he knew more than he could say, and I supposed he had to in case he changed the coming fate. Though his advice just left me in a daze of confusion. Follow your heart. It won't lead you astray. That's the only advice Gabe keeps giving him. Follow your heart. So he says, like it was some sort of fortune cookie on blast. What the hell did that even mean? My heart led me to guzzling bourbon and watching old recordings of pitball games that I had won back in my glory days.
And then he goes into the different orders and he's like asking everybody, the class, questions. And one thing that I noticed in here is he knew what he was doing when he bit Tori in the first book. He did it on purpose. Because he literally said right here, before any of that had happened, before he had even claimed, the other guy had already claimed Tori as his source. He said, I had a deal in mind for how we could work out our competition over them.
Like you just claim one, Caleb, and then I'll just claim the other one.
I will. It literally, he goes to bite Tori. We know this from the first book. Okay, this is not anything crazy. He bites Tori, knowing Caleb was gonna come after him, so he could be like, "Fine, I'll just take the other one, I guess." Darn.
He blocked me into a corner there.
And then he's going over Vampire Order. And he is talking about how he doesn't have to ask for blood. And he bites Diego. And he says, the boy released a yell of pain and, holy mother of fuck, what the hell is that? He tastes like a foot. And this causes him to want to bite Darcy even more because he wants to get that taste out of his mouth. So he's pissed off.
Interesting. Why do you think Diego tastes like a foot? It has never once in Ruthless Boys or any of the other series has a vampire bit somebody and said, I don't like their blood. Interesting. Think on that.
And then he gets pissed off and goes back to his desk and tells everybody to go over each mutatio in the table. And then he says, I found Gabriel had sent me a video and I clicked on it, fighting a snort at the tiny snake in it who was wearing an equally tiny cowboy hat.
If you read Ruthless Boys, that's why I'm saying people that don't read Ruthless Boys
won't get the little inside jokes.
They won't get the little inside jokes. You won't know who Noxie is. You won't get that is Ryder in a little cowboy hat when he refused at the first beginning of their relationships.
Ryder's the hard ass. And
not
he's
to
like,
wear hats in snake form.
Transformed into a tiny snake to put a fucking hat on. Cutest thing in the goddamn world.
Every time it comes up several times in the series where Gabe will show Lance or somebody else a picture of a snake and
it's part of his pride.
In different hats. Yeah. In different hats. And it's so funny. And I highlight every single one of them because I'm like, Ryder was so against it, but now conveniently he's in like 12 different outfits throughout the series.
And then he continues talking about it and said that he must be a Hepchian toad. Is that what Xavier ends up as? Lance gets a message from Gabriel, or he says something about the cow snake. How he wasn't going to be much good for wrangling. A photo came in of a plastic cow now sitting beside the snake, and I bit down on a laugh. Clearly, I was mistaken. Clearly. Aren't you in class right now? Yeah, freshman class. First one of the year. Come put me out of my misery. He asks how the Vega watch is going, and Lance says, I don't think there'll be any trouble. Gabriel says, are you sure about that? They're clueless. How much shit could they really stir up? Just don't underestimate them too much, Oreo. What have you seen? Nothing. Liar. Just follow your heart. Eat a dick. Is that an offer? You wish. I do every night on every star in the sky.
So funny.
Like, it's so cute, like, how their friendship plays out. And I love it. And you see it in Ruthless Boys a lot. So just to see that continuation of that is really nice.
That's when Darcy's atlas goes off.
They talk about the falling star.
The thing that Falling Star sent them about Ryan.
And then it goes into like how he let the class do coercion on them, all of that nonsense. And then how he got assigned as Darcy's tutor.
Yeah.
And then we go into a Caleb chapter. And this Caleb, I love that he's challenging Darius for Tori. It kind of makes my heart really happy. I am ready to get to the part where he and Tori have that intimate moment. I want to see what's going through his head so bad. And I want to know what happens when he tells Darius about it. Like that, I'm ready for that scene. I want it and I need it. I want it. I love it. I need it right now. But so we're in the first scene where Caleb is talking about how he feels about Tori. And like you get to know a little bit about why he's doing it and the fact that he knows that Darius wanted to lay a claim on her. He knows it. And he's like, come get her, bitch. Tell me.
Fight me for her.
Use your words, Darius, is like what he's trying to get him to do. And it literally starts out with who you trying to impress. That Darius is asking Caleb. And he's like, oh, you know. And then it goes into a little bit about Caleb's mom, who you do meet in Ruthless Boys. She's like, I think that she was the like sweetest person towards Darius in the beginning in point 5 when they were awakened. She wanted to bring him in and love on him and when his dad was being a dick. So you hear a little bit about how his mom feels about the heirs. And he says, yeah, I agreed flippantly because I knew what the official council line was on the matter. The Vegas were a threat we couldn't tolerate and they needed to go. I heard it loud and clear. But my mom wasn't always as cut and dry as the rest of them, and she'd given me further instructions than just blindly trying to force the Vegas out. She wanted me to figure them out, work out what made them tick, and decide whether or not they could really pose a threat to us. After all, we'd all been intended to serve beneath the Savage King's daughters one day if fate had played out differently, and they'd grown up here with their parents alive. So she wasn't willing to just blindly ignore the threat their level of power could cause us. What a smart woman.
She's like, are they a big threat? Should we maybe not and just be under them? Like,
are they bad?
Are they bad? Can we just figure this out instead of just blindly being like, no, because their parents died, that now we're the rightful leaders?
Caleb's feelings on the matter. It goes through the chapter where they're in the fire class and how him and Darius go at it and about how they're fighting. And he's essentially just like, he knows that Darius is not going to agree to help train Tori.
Yeah.
And he's kind of giggling at it at the end. And then they kind of come to a little bit of they got their aggression out at each other about the whole situation with her. So the next chapter is the last chapter we're going to go over for today. And it is a Darius chapter. Wait, no. Oh, it is the last chapter.
Yeah. They're at pitball practice.
Yes. So they're at pitball practice. They didn't talk about that at all in the first book, which makes me really sad.
It comes back into play.
I figured it would. But they're all on the pitball team for Zodiac Academy, which if you read Ruthless Boys, you know that Lance is the coach. And so it's kind of going into Darius, and he is trying to make a goal. So pitball is like, God, how do you explain it?
It's rugby, but instead of like trying to make like it to the other end of the field, you're trying to make it into this pit in the center of the ground, and each team has two people.
Rugby and Quidditch.
Yeah, there's two people trying to block you from putting it into the pit in the ground, and then everybody else on the teams, there's either offensive or defensive, and there's an offense and a defensive for each element. So there's 8, 9, 10 people on a team. Because there's 2 air, 2 water, 2
essentially,
earth, 2 fire.
A ball comes out of a hole in an element. Whoever is in that element, which one ever catches it first, they're on the offensive. And everybody else is just trying to get them down, get the ball from them, and take it and score it. So that's kind of what they're talking about. Darius is trying to score.
If you drop them, or if the timer runs out.
The entire team is trying to get him down, and he like wrangles out of them and ends up scoring, which is huge, and they all love each other.
Geraldine is on
the team. And she, after that, so there is paparazzi that's not supposed to be there. It's illegal for them to be out on the pitch, and they're taking pictures of the heirs. And she goes, the stars only know why they'd be snapping pictures of you 4 luggamuffins anyway.
She also says, pish posh. I can admit that the Dragon Boy is one devilish specimen if you discount his entire personality, but the mutt needs a haircut more than I need my lawn watered twice a day, and the biter can only pull off the pretty boy polished ensemble. Mud and muck does not become you.
And then, I've never known a rough and ready man to sport a manicure, you puffed up pom-pom, she laughed. And don't get me started on the solemn salamander. And then Max is like, what about me? You didn't mention me. You are the fish, you bothersome barracuda, the salty sea bass, the dangling dogfish, the puffed up pufferfish. Need I go on? What a woman. What a freaking woman.
I love her so much. People say my hair is nice. Seth mutters.
It's shit hot, man. Ignore her. And then Seth says, you think? Because I think you look totally fuckable right now, all covered in mud. In fact, I'd definitely suck your dick if you want to go get drunk in the Shimmering Springs again like last time when we... There's a story.
Let me highlight that for when we get to another book.
I'm guessing that comes up. So I'm guessing that's a story that we're going to hear about later. So I'm sure that it's Seth and Caleb are the ones that share people.
Maybe.
And then Caleb says, speaking of fuckable, you should have seen how hot Tori Vega looked pinned beneath me while I bit her in Fire Elemental earlier.
Trying to piss off Darius.
Don't you think so, Darius? Like, he's just pushing this man. And then Seth says, hell yeah, she does. I mean, who would have expected the Vega twins to be so fucking banging? What do you think the chances are of us convincing the 2 of them to join us in an Air Princess orgy before we have to kick them the hell out of here? Well, seeing as there would be 4 dicks and a pair of siblings, I'm going to be saying no thanks, Darius says. And then Seth says, boo, you're so fucking vanilla, Darius. I swear if I wasn't convinced you fuck like a Helion with all the anger of the devil at your back, I'd be convinced you were a boring lay. I bet you've never even sucked a cock, have you? Dude, you're the only one of us who likes a side of dick with your pussy. That doesn't make him vanilla. Don't knock it till you've tried it. I'll be gentle with you. Or rough? When you fantasize about it, how would I be? Do you want to top me, or would you be down for me topping you? Because I promise that when you... And then Caleb shuts Seth up in the middle of that.
I just highlighted another section because that's so funny.
And then Orion comes over and tells Darius that his dad is trying to check in with him. So Darius calls his dad, and then his dad is just being a dick, and he says, let's cut the pleasantries now. Like, what an asshole.
And then he says, neither you nor Xavier should really need any more lessons in undesirable consequences, should you?
What an asshole.
Such a dick.
You wouldn't want to fail me on such a simple task. And then he's saying that he has to be home for dinner. And he's like, okay, that's fine. And then he gets off the line. They'll be long gone by the weekend, is what he's telling his dad. And he said they better be. We know that they're not long gone by the weekend. I also want to get to the chapter where they're making out in the club. I'm very excited for that one too.
So then he's going through the woods. He thinks he sees Roxy, and it ends up being
Tori, and he's
Roxy. It ends up
he thinks
being
he sees
Gwen.
Tori. It ends up being Darcy.
Yeah.
And he like, this is where we see a little bit of Darius's soft side.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of knew that in the first book because Darcy is terrified
At this point.
and he like goes to take her out of the woods and then gets caught with Seth. And this made me dislike Seth even more.
Why? Which part?
Because Darius knows that Seth is a bad guy and what he has on his mind. Because Seth says, "I'll walk you out, babe." He took her free arm, trying to tug her away from me, and I was almost relieved at that, to just let him do what he was planning and have nothing more to do with it. Then again, that probably made me worse than I already was, because I knew that look in his eye and he was out for blood tonight.
You'll find out why he's like that. But what I wanted to point out, when Darcy asks him to walk her out, she says, "Please." And he goes, "Fuck, how many times have I said that word to my father in hopes of making his punishment stop? How many times have I heard it spilled from Xavier's lips with the same wish? I didn't give a damn about some terrified Vega princess, all scared and alone out here in the woods. But that fucking word, that one plea which rang in my ears, the taste of my own blood coated my tongue. Fuck it."
Which is why he went soft and was helping her out of the woods. And then he says, "Gwen looked at me for help and my gut twisted sharply. Why the fuck did she have to keep looking at me like I might have been something I wasn't? Why was she trying to have faith in me when I had none myself? I wasn't her savior. I wasn't even my own savior yet. And the sooner she realized that, the better. So I just gave her a cold stare in reply. But as Seth went to drag her away to do fuck knew what, a word spilled from my lip, which made him pause. 'Wait,' I said, my lips tilting into a cruel smile as I offered her the only thing I could. 2 monsters instead of 1. Though she would be better off for it because whether she knew that or not, she needs to give me a proper goodbye first." And then he makes her kiss his feet. We knew that. And then she finally realizes that he's not going to help her. Mm-hmm. He makes her run. They bump into the other boys. And that's when they make her like a little dirt monster. Mm-hmm. They call it the Power of 4.
Yeah.
Which was their game as a kid.
Yeah.
And they just haze her. Like, this one actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But one thing that Darius notices is that she becomes hard towards him again, and he's like, "Good, that's how she needs to see me." Mm-hmm. Besides, she'd asked me to get her out of the woods, and I'd done it. She never requested I didn't have a little fun with her along the way. Okay, things I'm looking forward to.
Okay.
I want to get to the chapter where they're dancing at the club. I want to know what's going through the boys' head there. I want to know what is going on in Darius and Orion's head with the nymph that was in town that hurt Geraldine. I want to know that whole situation. And then I also want to get to the spicy scene with Caleb and Tori. Mm-hmm. I really want to know how Darius takes that. Okay. Because I'm like 95% certain that they're Elysian mates. Like, there's no way that they're not. Right? Something might go along the way. I don't know what, but we'll see. And then Orion and Darcy. We know he lays his claim on her. Mm-hmm. And I want to know what's going through all of their heads during the dance. I want to know what Caleb's thinking. I don't give a shit about the other 3. I want to know what Caleb is thinking when they're drowning Tori.
I am excited. You don't get that perspective.
You don't get that perspective?
No, you get Darius's perspective.
Ew, I don't care about that one. I want to know Caleb.
But I'm excited for you to get Max's backstory about his siren powers and his family. It's something huge.
I'm actually really excited to read that chapter too, of when he's taking the girls' fears to see how he really feels about it.
And then I'm excited for you to see, it kind of mentioned it a little bit in the chapters that we went over about how Seth's mom is very cold to him and has made him lock up his emotions and be cold. And it gives a background story.
Which is crazy because that's not how wolves are supposed to be.
That's not how they're supposed to be, which is probably why it really fucks with him. Because normally wolves are like lovey-dovey. They're all over people. They're happy, whatever. And she specifically makes it so he cannot tells him to not show emotions, to be locked up.
Caleb's mom is good. We like Caleb's mom.
We don't
like Seth's mom.
We don't necessarily like Seth's mom. Not at
We
this moment.
obviously don't like Darius's dad.
Mm-mm.
What of the counselors are we going to like? Are we going to like Max's?
Max's backstory is sad.
Okay. Something coming. Again, my theories. Xavier. We already kind of went over this. How I feel that he's going to have more elements, but he's going to be a really crappy
Order
to piss the dad off. And
I'm so
he's going to be
excited.
at school starting next year.
Yeah.
I have read a little bit more, so I think that I know that because of that, but it's fine. His age, that's not a huge spoiler. Again, those scenes,
What do you
I'm
think their
waiting for them.
orders are now that you have read?
They're
Orion's
phoenixes.
point of view? Yeah.
I knew that before. As soon as I saw that tattoo.
Yeah.
Like I messaged her.
So funny.
I was like, I know what they are. It was so obvious. I'm kind of disappointed. Like, in a lot of things from The Awakening, from the first book, kind of makes sense why they worded it like that now.
Yeah.
I literally just thought that they were immune to fire.
I mean, yeah.
It also makes sense why
they are because they're phoenixes.
Well,
but
yes, that's because they're phoenixes.
But you think it's because maybe they're dragons or something like that, because dragons are also immune to fire.
So that another thing, that I wouldn't say that I didn't put it together. I just didn't really think about it too much. Their mom's a harpy. Their mom is a seer. Who else do we know that is a harpy seer? You guys don't know him yet.
Because you haven't read Ruthless Boys, probably.
But I read Ruthless Boys before I read this series. And I know that Noxie, who we've been talking a lot about, is a harpy seer, doesn't have family, and was messaged by Falling Star for his entire life that was giving him money
to his adoptive parents. And Gabriel Knox also has a private detective that was trying to figure out who his parents were and like what happened, and he could never find any information
on his parents.
On this random harpy. Why would you not be able to find parent information on just a random person unless somebody had covered it up?
So
same person who messaged the twins.
And also
dark hair.
Oh my God. Also, Gabriel talks about in Ruthless Boys so much how he was being hunted. Why would a random harpy be hunted?
Interesting.
Because he's not the king's son. Is he?
Nobody knows. It gets into it, but nobody knows that
he's not the king's son. He's just the queen's son. Before the king stole her from her kingdom.
That's deal. You'll see.
Did he know about him?
You'll see.
Oh God, I need to know.
It's so cute. Actually, it's so cute. It's actually the cutest. Do you want me to tell you?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Anyway.
Very good theory. I like. We still think Diego is bad. He tastes like a foot for some reason.
I don't like Diego. Just the things that he's saying and the things that he's doing are not really matching up, and that he's trying to be there for the girls. It sounds like he's trying to get close to them on purpose, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I'm trying to think of anything else that I wanted to
He's using
bring
Sophia.
up.
I don't like that either. I like her. Yeah. So those are the bigger things that I'm looking for the rest of this book. This is part 1 of 3 parts.
Yeah, for As Told by the Boys.
So next week we'll get into that a little bit more, but yeah. So that is it for this video. My rankings for the boys so far.
Have they changed at all? Or is it still Caleb, Darius, Seth, Max?
Honestly, I'm going to put Seth on the bottom. I think I hate him more.
Okay.
I told you that part there.
Valid. At the end of book 1 for me, mine was Caleb, Darius, Max, Seth. Before I read the boys' perspective, though.
Yeah.
That's how my ranking was.
I'm going to switch them. Max was the worst. And I think it was a recency bias because of the shit that he had just done to Tori. And cutting off Darcy's hair was bad.
Yeah.
They almost killed Tori.
Yeah. Whoopsies. Was not supposed to go that far. And you'll see that perspective here where they're like,
I don't care if it wasn't supposed to go that far. It did.
It did.
But yeah, that is the end of our Zodiac Sunday. We are almost a month in, guys.
That's insane.
This is pretty cool, pretty crazy. I'm
love that
liking
you're
the book
reading
so
it.
far. This one is really gripping me. I think because it's like a reread almost,
Book 2.
but more info.
Book 2, I bet you're not going to put down. I bet you're going to read book 2 in one sitting.
We'll see.
Because it's all about them getting revenge.
We'll see. But I'm liking it so far. If you guys are reading with us, that's really freaking cool, and I would really like it if you told us. Come discuss with us. Like, let's do this. What do you think?
Yeah.
Did you figure out that the girls are phoenixes yet? I mean, technically, I don't even know yet. You just shh.
I didn't say anything.
But my sources point to phoenixes.
I mean, it makes sense though. Their orphan parents died in fire. They weren't touched by the flames. They increase their magic via fire. Darius gets a vision from the stars about a dragon and a phoenix.
Okay. I think Darius and Tori are mates. I think Lance is mates with Darcy. Yeah. We'll see what happens. But if you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, and thanks for listening. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.
When you look my way